This tutorial is going to be about how to handle the spikes in the flares. So again, we've got the flares going on here, and you can probably tell by now if you've been following along, everything's set up so that they disappear. They've got visibility settings going on, all that fun stuff down here for visibility angles. Okay, so let's look at the spikes and how they contribute to the scene. These flares are made up, when you start pulling these things apart, made up of several different glows and then several different types of spikes. See, there's long spikes here, and then there's a variety of spikes there, and probably an inner spike one here. So to edit this guy, we're going to double click here and look at specifically the spikes. So here's the slash. Okay, that's that slash right there. Remember, we can solo it out by looking there. There's a spike ball, big one. Let's see, there's the red glow and a red inside glow, and then another spike ball, which is a small one. Okay, you can see that one's just very small. Okay, so let's look at these things one at a time. Let's take this guy, okay, the slash, because there's only two pieces to it, and it'll be really obvious what's going on. So okay, so first of all, you can see that this is made up of two spikes, number of spikes 2, and the alpha channel is set really low too. Remember, the alpha channel is very useful for getting things to overlap and still be visible. If you set the alpha channel all the way up, you will get alphas out here where it starts to dim out, but on the inside, you're not going to be able to see one spike overlap the spike next to it, giving you this really sort of cool multi-layered look. So let's do that, and also I'll turn the blur down to 3. I'll just turn it off. You can see the difference, right, with no blur on, and then as we start bumping the blur up, what it does to it. Okay, sometimes you'll end up with the blur really high, and then you sort of lose control. You say, why can't I get control over this? You can't see individual spikes, stuff like that. But again, we're going to diagnose this. We're going to pull it apart. So I'm just going to turn this guy off and then look at the number of spikes. You see, you can just drag this and dial up this number. 1 spike, 2 spike, 3, 4, etc. It always, you'll notice, spaces them out nice and evenly. So to control that, we've got a random rotation right here, a rotation randomizer. So that, you see, we'll just put a different amount of rotation on each one of them. This is like a maximum value. It doesn't do 111 degrees for each one. It just picks a random value between 0 and 111 and then offsets the rotation by that. If you don't like this one, of course, you can choose to change the spike seed like that. Okay, so let's turn that down. And number of spikes, spike length. Okay, so that's obviously the length of each one of those spikes. You can dial that up or down depending on whether you're making a tiny little spike ball or a long one. Now this is also a very good example of having a spike width that's small here and large here. Okay, so start width and end width. You see the start width is set to 3, end width is set to 64. So this creates a fan-shaped spike. If we want something that's big and overlapping, we can do fun stuff like this. We can really bump this guy up like this, and then randomize the rotation of these guys so they're all over the place, and then pull this down. Now you'll notice how right here, you see what I was talking about earlier, when the alpha channel is up too high, you just get this big burnout place. If I start lowering the alpha channel down, you see now you're getting this really cool sort of multi-overlapped look. The spike length can also be changed. Right now it's got a very small randomization. If you set it to 0, you see there's no randomization there, and then as you increase the amount of randomization, it gets up to like this. So now you see we're getting some really cool sort of things going on, like this, sort of almost a shimmer effect when you're working with spikes that overlap a lot. Now remember what we have here. We've got an end width of 123. So let me really reduce the number of spikes so that you can see what it is that we're working with. And all right, see, this is sort of the building blocks that all this came from. Does not look like an ordinary sort of spike, but again, once you've really bumped up the number and then adjusted the alpha channel down, you get some really you're going to get that really cool sort of multi-layered look. Okay, let's change this a bit. Let's go back to a more normal end width, and we're going to bump the alpha channel up. And in fact, I'm going to show you the opposite. We've been working with fan-shaped spikes, so what we're going to do here is we're going to change the end width to 0, or maybe 1. See, if it gets too small, it starts to, you get aliasing problems like this. Now you can overcome that by turning up the anti-aliasing. Out here, there's a setting for super sampling or auto adjust super sampling. Okay, so you can see that starts to break up when they get too thin. The best way of handling this is to never get into this situation in the first place. So I want to show you how to do that, and we do it by doing this. Sorry, let me bump that back down to 0 or 1, sorry, and we'll go back in here and then take a look at it. Okay, so here we go. You get around that by going to your end width and just increasing it up a little bit from 0. Okay, that's pretty simple. You just keep the thing from ever getting too small. Right now we're also using add mode, normal, screen. Yeah, it's all pretty much the same right now. And then we'll reduce the alpha channel like that. Oh, I see it. All these things, other things got turned on. Okay, so there we go. That's what a spike that starts and ends small looks like. If you increase the start, of course, you can get this type of an effect. All right, very much of a bursty type of effect. We'll blow this, reduce the blowout part that's happening here. And you know what? Instead of adding, I'm just going to go screen. That'll probably pull it all down. And now look what's happening here. I mean, it's so cool. You get this multi-layered effect. It looks like fire on the inside. Okay, I've never seen lens flares come out of any other program that looks like this. So this is really, really a cool effect. Bump this thing up. You see what's going on. And again, that's because we have a larger start width. We can make that even larger, and then a small end width. Okay, visibility range. This sets a small range in which the spikes are visible, and then of course you can change what direction that's pointing into. This is great if you're creating fake beams. See, this is the rotation of the individual beams underneath the visibility. This is controlling the direction of the visibility. All right, if you see how those things all sort of work together. Okie doke, spike seed, we always talked about that already. Start with, end with randomize. Okay, well this is a good one too, because you know what, I'm going to reduce this. What this is going to do, and I'm going to turn the number of spikes way down so that you can see what's going on. Okay, that's pretty good. And then let's bump up the alpha channel so you can see these bad boys. All right, so here we go. Now you see there's a small one, there's a wide one. Ta-da! That's about all there is to it. When you turn width randomization off, everyone has the same width. And when you turn that on, you'll see they change. Some are bigger, some are smaller. Again, if you change the spike seed, it'll change which one of the spikes are different. By the way, there is an option whenever you're using anything that's got randomizations going on here. One of the really cool things that you can do, it does slow down rendering a tiny bit, but you'll notice here that how all of these are exactly the same, right? See, they're bigger or smaller, but you've got a small one and a big one. And then at 9 o'clock, again, you've got a small one and a big one, and a small one and a big one. So we've got this option over here that says make each flare unique. And by turning that one on, you see now everyone turns out unique. What a concept. So that's a way of putting a little bit of personalization into every flare. The thing is that does slow down rendering a tiny bit. So if you do want to really maximize your rendering time, you can leave that turned off. Okay. All right, back in here, let's look at, that was width randomization. Length randomization, we talked about that one already. Start randomization. The start is a little bit odd. What that does is sets where these spikes start. Okay. Now you might not think that that's too useful automatically, but when you combine it with the type of fall-offs over here, then you can get some really cool teardrop sort of effects, or like where the scratches appear outside away from the center hotspot. Okay, that's what starts for. And then of course start randomization lets you change, it changes it from a perfect ring into a variegated ring. Okay, so let's turn that one off. Rotation randomization, alpha channel, we talked about that. Color, now the color is very bright right now. You know what? I keep forgetting that. Every time you go in and out of this thing, it turns off the soloing. We do that on purpose so that you don't accidentally leave something soloed, and you exit and you go out, and then suddenly your flare, half your flare is gone. So we're just going to solo that back down. and pull the spike start back in. Okay, now if I turn color randomization on here, you see there's nothing going on, and you may remember from a different tutorial it's because there's no there's no saturation, so there's nothing to change. So if we take this and we give it a saturated, more saturated, well, this is still very pastel, but if we do that, you'll see now we end up with a randomized color. If we turn randomization off, of course it's all just that same color, but as we turn this up a little bit, you see you get a little offset, a little hue offset, a little more and a more and a little more. Okay, the more saturated the color that you start with, the brighter and more vivid the colors are that you end up with when you do the color randomization. Okay, so just keep that in mind. You pick a saturated color, you're going to randomize with saturated colors. Okay, if you start off with a very light color, you're only going to get very nice light pastel shades. Okay. Alrighty, length gradients. I think we talked about these in another thing as far as glows go, but this is where you can pick gradients for the color of your spikes. So this is a length gradient, so it's going to start at white, going to end at gold in this case, and the randomization is on, so that's why it's doing that. Alright, so it's going to start at white, it's going to end at gold. You can't see the gold because it's clear way out here in the middle of the fall off. So, but what you can do is you can come back into that, and if you really want the gold, you can pull this down a little bit like that, and then you'll start seeing the gold right there. Of course, if you turn this fall off to constant, you'll be able to see it all the way to the ends. This is super cool. Being able to use gradients as the color of your spikes. I mean, think about that for a second. That's just going to give you all kinds of really useful things. Let's see, if we change this to a hump fall off, you see it falls off on both sides, and then let's take this, you know what, we're just going to play with this for a little bit. Let's make this smaller. We'll reduce the randomization, and we're going to reduce the start width, and there you see you start getting all those scratches. Now when we really increase the number of spikes and then change the start rotation, you see what we've got now? We've got this really cool piece, this really cool element that when you lay it in with other, let's see, let's add another spike ball on top of that, put a glow over the top of that, you see you can get some really fancy stuff. It's a little bit too strong. Whoops, wrong one. There we go. Pull that down so it's just like a touch. There we go. It's like that. You can get these amazing looking effects that you just can't get any other way. So cool, so cool, so cool. Okay, let's turn these guys off. Let's go back to this guy for a second and turn up its alpha channel. Okay, so that was a length gradient. You can do the same thing with the width gradient too. Let's take and reduce the number of spikes and bump this width out really wide, and then I'll show you what a width gradient does. Now what a width gradient is going to do is it's going to take this one spike, we'll do 3. It's going to take this one spike right here, and it's going to give you a gradient from the center out in both directions. Okay, so let's take this, let's change it to width gradient. So it's going to start white in the center, and then it's going to go out to yellow on the sides. So there you go. That's what that ends up looking like. And again, how are you going to get this any other way? I've just never seen this. The possibilities are making me shiver thinking about how cool you're going to be able to make this stuff. Let's do this again. There we go. So now we've got like a petal sort of look. Let's increase the number of spikes. Wow, so cool. Let's see. That's with that in the center. You know what? Let's change this out to just linear. That's too much in the center. Exponential, and we'll reduce the start rotation. Not past 0 though. We're gonna have to put a limit on that so nobody picks that, and we're gonna pull it down there. There you go. Gosh, cool. Great. So let's see. Spike length. Let's randomize the length a little bit now. We've got that guy going on. Very neat. Wow. Petally sort of amazing look. And we'll reveal the inner beauty by turning down the alpha channel. So you've got the sort of look going on. Amazing, you can also use textures for these things too. So textures allow you to bring in literally any shape. I'm going to do a whole entire tutorial on that later so you can see what you can do, but it's awesome. It's just too awesome. Okay, the last thing we're going to do is talk about these fall-offs so you understand how to use these sort of petal controls. Let's drop this down to 2, bump up the alpha channel, and we're going to reduce the, we're going to turn off the randomization for all these guys. So we're working with very simple, with a very simple, there we go. Let's put this at 90. Sure, why not? Okay, so you really understand what's going on here. Okay, spike length, make this a little bit wider. Okay, very good. Now, if we set the fall off, this fall off controls the inner to the outer part of the spike. This fall off controls the center to the outside edge of the spike. So if I set this to constant, you see it's going to be at a constant rate the entire time. Here, let me move this over so you can see there's the center. That's what it looks like at the end. If I increase the end width, you see there's our spike, right? It can be a fan shape. It could be, this controls the inner and outer shape to that sort of thing. Okay, so if we put it at this, there's no fall off happening in either direction. If we change the, I'm not going to go there yet. Let's just work on center to outside. So if we take this one and we go linear, you see you've got a linear fall off from here to there. If we go exponential, it's more of an exponential fall off. So it starts dropping much faster and has much more of a dark side to it. What this does, this sets the minimum amount that it'll ever get. Okay, and this sets the maximum amount that it'll ever get to. Okay, so you can use this very quickly for sort of controlling the base, the top part and the bottom part of the curve that you're working with. Okay, exponential, swoop down. This is even more of a swoop. See, it drops off much faster. So it starts bright, and what I'm trying to draw here is little examples. I'll try to put these up so that you can see a graph of what these guys actually look like. So, so swoop down has a much faster fall off rate. Swoop up goes in the opposite direction, starts turned off and then swoops up. So it gets brighter as it goes further away. Now you can do the same sort of thing by taking swoop down and then inverting it. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. It doesn't do that. Actually, what happens is it flips it in the other direction. So it starts off and then it flips it upside down instead of left to right. Okay. So again, look at the graph so you can understand what's going on with that. So swoop down, swoop up are not the inverse of each other. Okay. Hump starts at black, goes up to bright, and then drops down to black again, sort of like a bell-shaped curve. Sharp hump is a fatter top. All right, so it's starting at black, going up to the top, but it gets up there faster and then holds for a little bit before it drops all the way down. Sharp hump 2 is yet even farther, so it really ramps up quickly. It's made for giving you teardrop effects where you've got just a little tiny wink where it pinches out at the end. And then edge highlight stays completely off and then gives you just a little bit of an edge at the end. This was mostly designed for doing the edge highlight that you see in rings, in like the iris part of the ring. But since we had it here, we thought, oh, why not? We'll just stick it in here. And it's actually come in useful for a few really interesting flare effects too. Okay, so that's what that is. Now, that was going from the center out. Now, from the center of the spike out to the end of the spike. Now, going from the center of the spike in the other direction, the width, and going out towards the edge, we have this. Linear starts here and then just immediately does a drop off. Okay. Whoops. Let's turn that back down there. Exponential, same sort of thing. It just drops off faster, and then has a longer blend to the edges. Okay. Swoop down, stays up high and then swoops right at the end. So this one is made to have just a very quick fall off right at the very end. Swoop up does the opposite, where it starts at nothing and then swoops up quickly and then holds. Hump, again, it's going to start. Is invert turned on? No. Okay, so hump here, what it's doing now is it's starting at full intensity and then dropping to black and then coming back up. So in this case, if you want to invert that, then you'll get this where it starts at black, jumps up to the top, and then drops down. Okay, so that was Hump. Sharp Hump, again, the drop off happens much quicker. Sharp Hump 2 even quicker yet, and then Edge Highlight does the very tiny little edge highlight at the end. So you see it starts at black and then quickly ramps up, or inverted looks like that, giving you these tiny little things. To me personally, some of these are more useful than others. This, for instance, I wouldn't even think about doing this because it takes extra rendering time, frankly. You know, the extra time it takes to calculate the entire thing and then turn off half of it just makes no sense. But hey, they're there. Again, I said most of them were there because some of them are more useful for rings and others are more useful for spikes. But that's basically how it all works. So at this point, you should have a really good idea about how all of these let's see, multi-iris. Where are some spikes here? That's a flare. Let's see, like digital streaks. There you go. See, digital streaks is made up just of 2 spikes. Very simple. You can adjust the length of that streak if it's too long by pulling it down. Some of these are set up very large, you know, but if you do something like that, and then maybe you turned on, well, let's see what these look like with all the pieces on. That's just too much, right? That's looking better. Get rid of the red glow, get rid of the big spike ball, red inside. Okay, I'm assuming, say you start off with something like that. It's too much, too much. That glow looks pretty good. Let's adjust the radius down, and we're going to stretch it out. There we go. And I usually try to leave this scale alone. I try to do everything over here that I possibly can. If I have to scale it down, I might as well save rendering time and just set the radius smaller. That's, you know, my view. Again, always trying to save rendering time. Alpha channel 20, ring size, number of sides, number of objects. Just want one object right there. Okay, and well, let's see, did that actually have something going on? Oh, I see. As you see, as it gets more off axis, it's creating these little things. So those are cool. I might leave that on there because that actually looks like a pretty neat thing. So if we do that now, you'll see these guys are coming on, and the more off axis we get, it's going to change how those things look. So that's pretty good. I think I've given you a pretty good idea on how spikes work. Remember, there are flare scales there for the whole thing, and there is an extra spike scale right here if you want to adjust the size of the spikes independently of the glows or the flares. The glow scale, we can adjust that. I don't think I left any glow turned on actually. So yeah, there you go. So that's spikes. We've already talked about. If you still need to know how the glows part, you know, look at the other tutorial on that. And you should be up pretty much ready to go on flares. Anything after this point is going to be real sort of special stuff on showing you how to get the most out of your flares, how to optimize speed, and get really cool, unique looks. So there you go. Go get flares.